So if biodiversity disappeared tomorrow, what would actually happen? Well, to understand that, I think we have to step back and understand what biodiversity really is. And it's a term that, especially if you're in the conservation space, you've heard it, you might know a little bit about it. If you're not in the conservation space, you probably still have heard about it. It's very easily defined, but it's also kind of abstract. So biodiversity essentially is the diversity of life, biota, on our planet. So when we think about the diversity of mangroves, like are around me, the diversity of oak trees, the diversity of birds and lizards, termites, ants, that all those things amass to biodiversity. And let's not ignore fungus and bacteria. Those also count towards biodiversity. So the benefits of biodiversity is where things get much more abstract. Definition, super simple. Benefits, more abstract. I like to make a little bit of a metaphor in that biodiversity is sort of half software update and half hard drive backup. So we kind of know those things in today's day and age. So when you think about the concept of biodiversity as a hard drive backup, every ecosystem niche, every process that, the termites aerate the soil, the woodpeckers help keep beetles at bay from trees, all these kind of things that species, they're not just existing for our pleasure, they're existing because they've made it this far in millions and millions of years of evolution, and they have some sort of niche. They keep the ecosystem in check, they might even keep fires at bay. Prairie dogs, great example, their underground tunnels actually are refuges for all sorts of animals and species during wildfires. The snakes and the bunnies and all, they take refuge in them. So these are ecosystem services we're talking about that keep the whole thing balanced. And the hard drive backup is that if one thing disappears, which happens, they're called, the big fancy term is stochastic events. When a big thing happens, it might be a hurricane, a volcano, a fire, a naturally occurring fire, these species might get wiped out. And that's just the nature of things. In fact, present day, we have lost, since the beginning of Earth, we've lost like 99% of species. That's not just in modern human times, I mean just in general. So species go away, like let's establish that. The hard drive backup is that when you have, especially keystone species, things that like govern ecosystem processes and govern life, they help make clean water and clean air, there are usually multiple species that do very, very similar things, like dozens in some cases. So this hard drive backup is that if we lose one or three of those species, do we still get the benefits from that little niche? Do we still get the benefits from things making clean air and water and refugia for the species like I talked about with the prairie dog tunnels? So you have redundancy in the system. It's like a big insurance policy. The other big thing is the software updates. So we've gone through millions and millions of years of evolution to give us the species we have today. That means that they have survived, they've overcome the odds, they've overcome these stochastic events, and they've made it this far. And so they have in their genes and their genetic makeups, which we're not getting into detail here, but they've figured out adaptations to deal with extra cold winters or extra hot summers. They've figured that out. And so when we think about reducing biodiversity, taking those species out of the equation, it's like operating a modern computer on Windows 95. There's been so many iterations since the beginning of time that species isn't just going to pop up and re-exist and re-evolve within a matter of years or even decades or centuries. It takes millions of years to do this when we think about the trees and the vegetation all around us, and these mangroves have been on Earth for millions of years. So again, software update, hard drive backup is a really, really interesting term, interesting metaphor for why biodiversity is so important in today's day and age. So what we're really talking about here is a big insurance policy for Earth. And as we humans create more disturbances, whether it's just clearing a field or a forest to put in a parking lot or a new big box store, or it's things that we're doing that contribute to climate change and changes in the atmosphere, changes in temperature, changes in rainfall patterns, changes in tides even in some cases, we have to be even more cognizant of this insurance policy, not least of which for ourselves. Like that's kind of a big point here, is that yes, we want to save biodiversity. Yes, we want to save critters because they're amazing, they're beautiful. We love being out in nature looking at them. But the reality is these things provide us services. They keep us alive. They keep us having clean water, clean air, crops, pollination, et cetera, et cetera. So remember, biodiversity, to save it, it's really important to save it for ourselves as much as just the right to be here.